Greetings. Welcome to Clock It. We are in the sixth week of the war in Iran and the first full week of Todd Blanche's run as acting attorney general. Until 2025, Todd Blanche was Donald Trump's personal defense attorney.
What about that? Other things
Hmm
happening this week include the gas prices stressing everybody out, the UK denying Kanye a visa because officials say his presence, quote, would not be conducive to the public good.
That's so crazy.
That's correct. And the safe return of an airman who had to eject from an F 15 over a mountainous region of Iran.
Yes, we are going to come back to gas
Uh
prices because
huh.
I've actually been speaking to some market watchers who gave me some advice for our listeners.
Not good news.
No, the news was very bad, very depressing. But this is also the week that four astronauts traveled further away from Earth than anyone ever.
It's very
Okay,
exciting.
it was very exciting. Now they didn't get out, but that's another. We're gonna get into it on Friday. They're gonna splash down off the coast of San Diego. It's so
It's very
exciting.
I love space. So
Yes.
this is something you know a lot about. The Vice President of the United States is
Is
the
head
head
of
of
the
the
Space
Space
Council.
Council.
Yes,
So
fun
you
fact.
were in meetings with Vice President Kamala Harris on this.
Yeah, I mean, all the members of the Space Council. The Space Council is this expansive membership, if you will, that has
Mhm.
experts, people from NASA, people within the government, a couple people outside of the government. They meet quarterly, actually. And then space is a foreign policy issue as
Yeah.
well. So, one of my last trips that I took with the vice president, we went to Paris. We spent a week
Mhm.
in Paris with Macron, honey. It was crazy. United States had messed up, and
Go
France was
apologize.
mad at us, so we had to spend a week in France to say sorry.
Oh, we're so
Woe
sad for
is
you.
us.
Yeah.
Yes, it
So
was
sad
so
for you.
taxing. But space was on the agenda, some of the
Yeah.
things we talked about. And so Victor Glover, who was the pilot of the Artemis 2, he's the first black man to circle the
Mhm.
moon, but he was also the first black man on the International Space Station.
Yeah.
And so when he was on the space station, the vice president at the time, actually, we talked to the astronauts on the space station. So we wheeled in this big like
Screen.
TV
Yeah.
screen monitor thing, but like huge. And then she was standing in front of it looking at them. They were literally floating in space. I was like, oh my God, gravity is not there. It was insane. I love it. Okay. I love it.
The thing that's so interesting about space is it knows no boundaries,
Well,
right? Like
clearly,
every
child. Do you think we're alone?
no.
Mm.
It's impossible. It's not just me. The people who actually know, like just the idea of all these galaxies that are out in the universe. It is impossible for us to be alone. Now, it may not be like little green men or women, but it might be like, some microbes somewhere. And also, this is the thing that I love so much from, and this is Neil deGrasse Tyson, who I love and I'm obsessed with. He says that if, let's say, someone's 50 billion light years away
That's
and they're
crazy.
looking at us and it's an alien species with like that walks around, what they would see is the dinosaurs because of how light travels. And so what they would be seeing is not us. So that's why ain't nobody coming here because they're like, what are these monsters sitting up at the little dinosaurs? Isn't
What?
that crazy?
Okay. Where did he say this?
He said on some podcast. So there's Victor Glover. He's the first black man to go on a lunar mission. And one of the other people up there, Christina Koch, is the first woman to go on one.
We love her.
We
She
love
she
her.
fixed the toilet.
Yeah,
The
very
toilet, the
important.
toilet on Artemis 2 broke they were in the air for maybe
the
40 minutes,
the
baby.
5G works, but
The
not the
5G
toilet.
works, the toilet didn't work, it broke. Let a woman do it because
Correct.
she fixed the toilet.
Someone had to fix
Shout out
it.
to Christina.
Listen to Glover talking about the history-making moment they're in.
Oh, yeah.
Young brown boys and girls can look at me and go, hey, he looks like me and he's doing what? And that's great. I love that. But I also hope we are pushing the other direction, that one day we don't have to talk about these first, that one day this is just, and I listen to this, that this is the human history. It's about human history. It's the story of humanity, not black history, not women's history, but that it becomes human history.
That's not
Come
the day
on,
we're
Victor
in, so we're
Glover.
very
Come
excited that
on.
he's
Come
here.
on.
Okay, but people on the internet, I am people on the internet, can't stop talking about this man on the live stream last week putting on lotion in space. We have no excuses to be
There is no
ashy.
excuse to be ashy. As a matter of fact, I
Where's the
asked for some
lubricator?
lotion before we got started. I was like, Victor Glover will want me to be moisturized, child. It is very, very important. The world is terrible right now. Like, we're going to talk about Iran later. There's ICE
Mhm.
updates. Like, everything seems so crazy. I myself, frankly, had a little personal breakdown
Yeah.
prior to doing this podcast
And look
today.
at it, shake it off.
Well, we got to show up to work.
Correct.
You were coming, so it wasn't like I could reschedule. Even I thought about
Yeah.
it. But I think so many people have been galvanized by this mission, Artemis 2, because it's a reminder that even though crazy things are happening in the world, terrible things are happening, extraordinary things are still possible in the midst of all the chaos. 4 people are going to the moon. Well, they're circling the moon, around the moon, because Artemis 3 will be the mission where we actually go to the moon.
It's such a good reminder that we are, as humans,
Yeah.
capable of terrible atrocities
Mm.
and also amazing possibility, which is what we're seeing here. And so it's a good reminder. Maybe we think about that instead of this next topic.
Well,
Because
Iran. It does remain the biggest news story. The president is playing this like we're lead up to the finale of The Apprentice, the mid-season finale, the worst mid-season finale where he's just like, I might bomb them, I might not. Stay tuned, 8 p.m.
And also, maybe I'll do a war crime.
Maybe I'll do a
Who
war
knows?
crime. You know, this is
Ooh,
a
stay
terrible
tuned
Donald
to
Trump
this.
impression, by the way. But
We're not
I
good
mean,
at
the
it.
dramatization of it is on brand for him.
I think it's dramatization.
Oh God, did I say dramatization?
Yeah, we're going to leave that in there, though. It's a
I
learning
went
opportunity.
I went to a good Catholic school too, so you know.
Well, I went to public school,
the
so
nuns
they
are
taught us
not
that.
pleased with that. The dramatization, thank you, get me together. The dramatization of it is, I think, intentional on his part. But it's also a major news story. As we're talking about it today, it'll be a major news story when y'all listen to this on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Because as we're recording this, Maggie Haberman and Jonathan Swan of the New York Times, they just dropped some new reporting about how Trump's war in Iran started. Get the paper, Eugene. Where is the paper, baby? Oh, first of
Y'all,
all, they got a book coming out. This
I'm
is a
very
good
excited.
teaser for the book. I'm about to order it right now.
I've already pre-ordered mine.
Headline: How Trump took the U.S. to war with Iran. Eugene.
Netanyahu comes, he talks to Trump. There's
Where were they meeting?
information that met in the Situation Room, which is not usually where
No.
foreign leaders
No.
meet. But I thought the most interesting thing was the next day, also in the Situation Room, Mr. Trump joined the meeting. Mr. Ratcliffe briefed him on the assessment of what Netanyahu was telling them. The CIA director used one word to describe the Israeli prime minister's regime change scenarios: farcical. At that point, Mr. Rubio cut in, quote, in other words, is bullshit, he said. The president turns to General Kane. General, what do you think? General Kane replied, sir, this is in my experience standard operating procedure for the Israelis. They oversell and their plans are not always well developed. They know they need us and that's why they're hard selling. Now, there are a lot of things that are interesting about this. We have said over and over and have heard and people have reported that Netanyahu pushed Donald Trump to make these decisions. At some point, Marco Rubio said that, then they had to backtrack.
Israel attacked them. They hit us first, and we waited for them to hit us. We would suffer more casualties and more deaths.
Mr. President, did Israel force your hand to launch these strikes against Iran? Did Netanyahu pull the United States into this war?
No, I might have forced their hand. You see, we were having negotiations with these lunatics, and it was my opinion that they were going to attack first. They were going to attack if we didn't do it.
But I think the thing that's
When
most
we said that,
interesting-
somebody tried to say we were being anti-Semitic, and I just continue to let you know these are just the facts.
the fact that they were able to get quotes and felt comfortable enough to put General Kane, Marco Rubio, Ratcliffe in quotation marks says that the highest
president?
levels, the president of the United States, the highest levels of the government are talking to them. Talking to them.
It's actually crazy work. It's absolutely crazy work. Read the reporting if you haven't read it. But to me, Eugene, what this does, it just crystallizes, frankly, what we all know to be true, is that the president took us to war for no real reason. We do not have to be in this war. Gas
No
is
reported that it was
currently up.
imminent.
No report.
Any imminent
Imminent did
attack?
not show
I didn't
up
see
in
it.
the document.
I didn't see that.
Okay, gas prices are up for no damn reason. The gas prices at home are getting dramatic, okay? Dramatic. I said earlier I've been talking to market watchers and analysts about how much gas is up, and I also have my own personal experience at the pump, Eugene. Now, y'all know Eugene does not
I
drive,
don't. Because
okay?
I'm bad at it. It's not that I'm bougie. It's that I'm actually not a good driver. I think
Okay.
it's boring.
Okay.
I don't- I need-
That is so first world. I cannot even describe. I think driving is boring. Okay,
It
well, to the people out there that don't
It
have the
is.
ability to
The-
choose not to drive.
The way my ADHD is set up, I
And he don't take
get
the
on
bus.
a scooter.
He's taking a scooter or a black car.
I get not always a black car. She's the black car.
But I drive my car. That being said, you don't understand what the gas is at the
I know
pump,
it's terrible.
child. Gas is terrible. I went and got gas this past Saturday.
How much was it?
It was $6.19. Now, I got to put the gas that, the gas has these little numbers on it. The gas in my car has to be be 91 or above. And
Uh-huh.
so I can't put the 89 in there, even though I wanted to.
Yeah.
The 89 was
You're
not
like, how
$6.
can I get
It
away
was a
with
little
this?
cheaper. But if I am concerned about the gas prices, I can only imagine how folks all across this country are feeling. Like the numbers are insane.
And then rising
It is
every single
bad.
day.
It's rising now. What the people I'm talking to are telling me is that gas could go all the way up to $10 a gallon in the next 2 months. Like that's crazy. And so what the experts have said, because
Mhm.
I'm calling people and asking them, what the experts have said is the way where you can pay the least amount possible
Right.
is just fill up every time you can.
Every time
So
you go a little bit of
you go
quarter
a little,
gallon.
a little quarter gallon
Mhm.
down, go fill up your quarter gallon.
Mhm,
Because
mhm.
baby, if you waiting to fill up half a tank, if you waiting to fill up a whole tank, it is going to be disastrous. Matter
Yeah.
of fact, if you are listening to this podcast in your car and you drive past a gas station, stop.
Yeah.
Stop and get you some gas while you can,
Get
okay?
it right now.
Get it right now
'Cause-
because the gas is going up. And if gas is up, that means fertilizer is up,
Mhm.
jet fuel
Yes.
is up, diesel is up.
Mhm.
That means it's going to cost more to get
Amazon.
the goods,
Mhm,
Amazon. It costs more
mhm.
to get the food out the ground because the fertilizer's up and shipping it is up. It's all up.
As we've said over and over on this podcast, the reason gas is up. Trump and Netanyahu started bombing Iran without a
Mhm.
plan. Maggie Haberman and Jonathan Swan have let us know that. Now, 20% of the world's oil is struggling as it tries to get through the Strait of Hormuz out into the market, which means there's less oil for everyone. Because you guys probably understand this. The president doesn't seem to get it, that the price goes up because we live in a global oil market. Less oil in one place impacts the whole planet and how everybody's gas and oil costs.
It's such a good point. The gas prices, the oil prices, it is definitely a factor in the unpopularity of the war. There's a recent survey, Eugene,
Yeah.
from the Pew Center, and it has 6 in 10 Americans disapprove it, okay? But that didn't stop Donald Trump from giving a speech on Monday to, I don't know, ostensibly tell the public what happened with the missing airman who was behind enemy lines for, according to the president, almost 48 hours. He gave this whole, I mean, literally the entire press conference could have been a background call given by the staff.
It probably should have been.
I didn't understand what was going on from the White House press briefing room. I didn't.
And what's crazy was after he said the war is going great, he threatened the media for reporting that there was a missing airman in the first place. Listen to this.
They didn't know there was somebody missing until this leaker gave the information. So whoever it was, we think we'll be able to find it out because we're going to go to the media company that released it, and we're going to say, national security, give it up or go to jail. And we know who, and you know who we're talking about.
It's the president of the United States saying he's going to jail reporters for doing our damn jobs. I don't know who he's talking about because multiple outlets reported on the Air Force colonel who had to be rescued after Iran shot his plane out of the sky. More importantly, Iranian state media had videos of the wreckage and U.S. planes searching first. And Simone, I feel like the thing, we are talking about it a lot, but I think the world and the coverage around this is not clear enough. At 8:06 a.m. on Tuesday, April 7th, President Trump posted, quote, "A whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again." That is the president of the United States saying, because when you say a whole civilization, that is genocidal. It is
genocide. It is a
getting
war.
rid of a whole
He is
civilization.
saying, I'm going to kill the people of Iran. He is not saying, I'm going to take out the leadership. He is not saying we are going to engage in regular war
You're right.
activity. He is saying, I'm going to wipe these people off the map. And he's putting an 8 p.m. Eastern time deadline on it. But that is the dramatization that I was talking about.
Yeah.
He thinks this is an episode of The Apprentice. But to be very clear, the thing about the threatening of the media organizations and the journalists, we can never allow the extraordinary to become ordinary.
Right.
And it is extraordinary for the president of the United States to stand at the podium in the White House press briefing room and say, we're going to ask the media organizations to tell us to give up their sources. And if they do not give up the sources, we are going to jail them. There was an episode of Madam Secretary about this. Okay, taking it all the way back. CBS,
Yep.
look it up.
Yeah.
But to be very, very clear, the misinformation, we often talk about it, the disinformation, what's happening online is running rampant with this. There are people out there, I think some of them are bots, okay? But there are people out there on social media that believe what the president said, that the journalists who wrote these stories put the service men and women in danger. And that is not true. You know what put them in danger? The president getting us into a fucking war.
And there we go.
I think we have to move on.
Before we get fired.
You know, okay. I don't want to forget to talk about something that I think the administration wants us to forget about, Eugene. ICE, okay? It continues to separate people from their families. ICE is still working right now.
A newlywed woman who went onto her husband's post, this is Fort Polk in Louisiana, to get her military ID was detained last week. She's been in the U.S. since she was a toddler. She got a deportation order when she was 22 months old. Applied for DACA in 2020 when Trump decided to stop accepting applications. One of the things that's so disturbing is that marrying a U.S. service member, marrying someone who sacrificed and continues to sacrifice their life for the good of the country used to be a way to protect you from a lot of the bad things that can happen when it comes to deportation. As a kid growing up on posts all across the South, we had all women from all over the world who were married to men who were military folks. And that I never thought about, they never thought about the idea that they would be deported, that they would be snatched from their husbands who are
This is
military
unsettling me.
servicemen.
I am unsettled by this, Eugene. I was looking. The woman wasn't a criminal.
Nope.
Was she?
Nope.
She hadn't committed any heinous crimes. Did she
No
rob
crimes at all.
anyone? Did she murder anyone? Okay, I thought that the administration told us that they were focusing on the worst of the worst. So why was this woman prioritized for deportation?
It's almost like they lied
It's
about
almost
that.
like they were not telling us the truth. And now we even have the new Secretary of Homeland Security, Markwayne Mullin. He was actually sworn in on March 24th. Now, during his Senate confirmation, Eugene, he was specifically asked some very key questions, and he made some promises. He would not be the first person in this administration to say one thing in front of the Senate.
Or in the government.
Okay, and do
On the
something
Supreme
else
Court.
later. Well, clock it, okay? But this is what he said. First, he said ICE officers won't go into homes or businesses without a judicial warrant anymore, okay? That means that they're not going to go without a judge's sign-off that there's cause to arrest a person, right? Unless they're chasing somebody.
Sure. Yeah. And two, he said he will never work against the mayors and law enforcement of sanctuary cities. On Monday, CNN had reporting that efforts to lease or buy warehouses and turn them into detention centers on pause, that Mullen's staff is reviewing those projects. However, on Monday evening, Markwayne Mullin, DHS Secretary, went on Fox News and told Bret Baier something completely different about sanctuary cities.
If they're a sanctuary city and they're receiving international flights, and we're asking them to partner with us at the airport, but once they walk out of the airport, they're not going to enforce immigration policy. Maybe we need to have a really hard look at that because we need to focus on cities that want to work with us.
So you're saying that big cities that are sanctuary cities that have a big airport, they might lose their customs?
Well, I'm saying we're going to have to start prioritizing things at some
Look,
point.
the sanctuary. Now I feel like now I feel like Nicole Wallace. She likes to cuss on her podcast.
Yeah.
Now I feel like I'm about to cuss. The sanctuary cities argument is some bullshit because there is not in every city across this country, the law enforcement officers will tell you that they do cooperate. They are suggesting that the local law enforcement are not cooperating with the feds. And that's not true. Now, what they aren't doing is like combing through people's like random social media, asking people to show their papers when they pull them over at a stop sign or a tail light. No, they're not racially profiling, but goodness gracious.
Stated priority is deporting, quote, the most egregious felons and criminals. But then he also makes clear in that same Bret Baier interview, Simone, that the net is wider than that. Anyone who has missed court dates, had an asylum claim denied, or is in the country illegal is subject to removal. Quote, if you're in this country illegally, you have a duty to self-deport.
So that's everybody. Now,
Every damn body.
Before we go off of this, you told me earlier, I don't know when you told me, a couple days ago. Was it yesterday that you have some reporting from what Democrats have been saying? What are these Democrats saying about Markwayne Mullin?
Now, I think after this interview, I'm going to go back to them because I think they might have some questions.
But what did they say to you
What they
before?
said originally was that Markwayne Mullin made them feel a little bit safer and more confident because of what he said in some of his, exactly, the face she's making. Can we zoom in, Renee, on the face my girl is making, please? Yes, on camera 3. Because at the end of the day, they felt he was going to be better than Kristi Noem because he said the thing about the judicial warrants. But like, I don't read that interview with Bret Baier.
Democrats should not relax.
At all.
Markwayne Mullin works for Donald Trump, okay?
Mhm.
So all of these folks that are convincing
And
themselves.
Stephen Miller.
And Stephen, come on, clock that. So all of these folks, Democrats, Republicans, independents, or otherwise, that are convincing themselves that, oh, somebody else, whether it's Markwayne
Mhm.
Mullin at DHS, whether it's whoever gets to be the next Attorney General since Pam Bondi is out, you can change the players all you want. The game is still the same. The coach is still the same. It's still the same team. Like, we got to get with it.
Because
Get
at
with
the
it,
end of the
people.
day, all the decisions are being made from the White House. They're not being made in these agencies like they usually would be.
I'm sorry, I'm very fired up about this, but people cannot believe that because you're going to swap some people out, that
Mhm.
like all of a sudden this person is going to make it better. You know what? This stressed me out, Eugene. Can we switch to talk about some culture?
Yes.
We got to talk about some culture.
Yes.
I need a break. I need a break. I need a break. When we come back, folks, we will have, very excited,
Very
Eugene booked this
excited.
person. We love Jeff.
Jeff.
The author of Black Out Loud, the revolutionary history of Black comedy from vaudeville to 90s sitcoms. Here with us, Jeff Bennett is joining the group chat. We'll be right back.
Welcome back, and welcome Jeff Bennett, formerly NBC's White House correspondent, NPR's DC reporter. Now he co-hosts PBS NewsHour. Y'all seen him. In his spare time, for some reason.
What spare time he got,
Exactly.
okay?
Created spare time, and then wrote a book about comedy, the 90s, and how society talks to itself about things it's not ready to face directly.
Seems very
Thank you.
timely.
This is called the group chat, so we appreciate you coming to the group chat.
Coming
Thank you
to
for
the
having
group
me. It's
chat.
so great to see you all.
Can I just read from the jacket of this book? First of all, the cover of this book
Isn't
is
it so
absolutely
pretty?
amazing. The jacket of the book, y'all. Oh, let me not F up the jacket. Black comedians have long played a pivotal role in shaping the American sense of humor. We go from the minstrel shows to like the 90s.
And then to
It's
Issa
cra-
Rae and
Yeah.
Right,
Quinta.
right.
Yeah.
But I got to the minstrel shows in a roundabout way.
Yeah.
I started with a focus on the 90s, and the lingering question was, how was it when I was growing up? You saw all of these different sitcoms, all of these like different visions and variations of Black life on the air at the same time.
Yeah.
So that was
Mhm.
sort of my research project in putting this book together. And I realized I could not tell the story of the 90s responsibly without going all the way back to the beginning.
Yeah.
And the beginning of Black performance,
Why
Black
couldn't you?
comedic performance. Because every generation builds on the previous
Right.
generation.
Mhm.
And in many ways, you have so many of these comedians, whether it's Richard Pryor or Moms Mabley or Dave Chappelle,
Mhm.
they are
Red Fox.
they are in some way
Mhm.
responding to the minstrel era.
Mm.
And if you go back and watch some of that stuff now, I mean, it's degrading,
Yeah.
it is dehumanizing. It was also big business. It was
Mhm.
mass entertainment at the time. And it's this crazy contradiction because you have these comedians who were forced to parody Black life. And so that is the beginning of Black comedic performance in this country. And
Now-
that's where the book starts.
Now, Jeff, when people think about Jeff Bennett, because they
Mhm.
do think about you, you're very famous. When they think about you, they do not think comedy.
Yeah.
They think politics. They
Uh-huh.
think sitting outside of the White House doing hits for NBC.
Not they
and
put you in a box.
MSNBC in the old days. But this is something, people that know you're funny.
Yeah.
But like, talk about why you wanted to write this book and not a political book.
Yeah, how did you come to do this?
Because it was the book that I'd always wanted to read that had not been
Mm.
written.
Mhm.
One. Two, even though I've covered national politics, I've also covered the culture.
Right.
And I think cultural coverage, especially these days, is more. There you go.
It's the
It's
whole
whole-
podcast.
it's the- come on now.
It's the whole thing, right?
Tell the
Yeah.
people.
There is a durability and an endurance to our
Yeah.
culture that does not
Mhm.
exist in our politics. And again, I had this question: how did all of these shows exist? It could not have been a coincidence.
Right.
We work in television. We
Yeah.
know enough to know enough about. You could not have a show like Fresh Prince, In Living Color, Living Single,
Martin. Mhm.
Arsenio on in Late Night, all simultaneously. So how did that happen?
How did it happen?
Well,
Fox
it
was
was a
desperate.
that's right. It was a business decision, like anything else.
Oh,
Um,
because we make money. We as in Black people.
Correct.
Black folks have always been overrepresented in terms of TV viewers. And at the advent of Fox Broadcasting Network, and we should explain for folks, back then, Fox Broadcasting Network and Fox News, those are two separate things. There are
Mhm.
generations of, especially younger people, who will hear me say Fox and think Fox News. That's not what this was. Barry Diller launched a fourth broadcast TV network. And he told me that when he looked across the landscape of primetime entertainment, what ABC, CBS, and NBC were putting on the air was basically indistinguishable.
Yeah.
And he knew that to launch a new network, it had to be different. It had to be bold. It had to skew young, urban. We know what urban means.
Black.
Yeah. And so The first pilot that got greenlit was for a show called Not the Cosby Show because word had gone out in Hollywood that Barry Diller wanted stuff that was not like what's on the other networks. So if you're an enterprising producer, I'm going to make it really easy for a network exec to greenlight my show. I'm going to call my pilot Not the Cosby Show. That show becomes Married with Children. So when Fox finds
Which
success,
is definitely not the Cosby
not at
Show.
all. So they find success with Married with Children, Simpsons, Cops, and that's what opens the door to a Keenen Ivory Wayans with A Living Color.
Yeah. You're right that at that time, black and white audiences are basically watching the same shows. But at some point, black folks finally had options. And
Yeah.
I think that, and you hit on this in your very first answer, but the idea that we had options to see different aspects of black life, right?
Yeah.
And not just like a doctor married to a lawyer with all their fun kids,
Right.
but also like Will Smith acting crazy on Fresh Prince before
with a
he
rich
was
uncle.
slapping people
Yeah.
with a rich uncle
Yeah.
and a rich auntie.
Yeah. And we should be clear, black folks.
I just want to know,
Yeah.
Eugene is using auntie as a slur
Not as a
towards
slur.
me.
I just think that
It is a derogatory term. Auntie is a derogatory term when
can't- y'all
Eugene says
cannot
it
if
to
you're
me.
watching this
Because there
woman,
are
this is
there are
very
people
auntie.
who embrace it.
You need to embrace it. You're young auntie.
I
You
wouldn't
give young
go that. I
auntie.
wouldn't tell her she needs to embrace
She
it.
Thank
but-
it's
you,
too
Jeff.
late. She
Thank
does
you,
embrace
Jeff.
it. She is Lynn's auntie behavior. Y'all
There
should
were
see her.
aunties on
Yeah.
television. But to Eugene's point, I think the range was really interesting and
Yeah.
important. And it feels like, I don't know, like there's juxtaposing the 90s with like what's on TV right now is kind of like,
Yeah.
it's like we had a heyday and then the heyday went away and it felt like it's so hard to get things made. And now there's like bits and pieces, like the Life and Times of Reggie Dinkins is on TV.
Abbott
A
Elementary is
Different
very
World is
black.
coming back in a different way
Right.
on Netflix. Abbott Elementary. But it feels like that there were many more shows back in the day.
Yeah. And we should say there had been black folks on TV well before the 90s. Because
Right.
some
Yeah.
people have asked me, why didn't you write about Good Times or 227?
Good. So good.
But what's specific about the 90s is that you had black showrunners, you had black producers who were intentional about being specific and authentic in their storytelling. And that did not exist before that era. And that's how you get the genius of a Martin Lawrence. That's how you get the genius, again, of like a Keenen Ivory Wayans. And so we're seeing some of that now, like Quinta Brunson with Abbott Elementary, which you mentioned. But even though there's more volume now, there's more content, there's more stuff to watch, the impact isn't there because everybody's in their own silos. There is no monoculture
There's too
anymore.
much. You can't
There's
have
too
impact.
much.
I feel like the last, like, quote unquote, black show that we watched together was Scandal.
Insecure.
I was going to say Insecure.
We
Yeah.
watched Insecure together as
Yeah.
a culture, if
Yeah.
you will. Yeah.
And you could talk about it on Twitter in real time. Like
Yeah.
that was the thing.
And they hit on real issues. I mean, your point, like the culture and politics is intimately intertwined, I would argue. But also culture leads politics. They talked about real issues on these sitcoms in the 90s. I'm
Right.
thinking about the Different World episodes about apartheid or about HIV.
Excuse me, Josie? What's it like? I mean, how do you feel every day?
Some days fine, other days not so fine. I take a lot of medicine.
I don't understand. This is not a woman's disease.
Tell that to the 16,000 women who have it with me.
They use drugs, and they do perverted things.
AIDS is not a moral judgment.
I mean,
There was
heck,
a whole Rodney King episode.
Come on
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
Like, in real time, really just dissecting what the people who were watching, frankly, that looked like the folks on the screen, what they were feeling and what they knew to be true. I just think,
And they felt like full characters.
Yeah,
not
yeah,
caricatures
yeah.
of black people, which felt
And that
good.
was intentional. One of the great things about this book was I got to interview all of the people who I grew up just like watching and
like, who'd
enjoying.
you talk to?
Sinbad. I had chased
Oh my
Sinbad for
God,
years
really?
for an
How was
interview.
he doing? He was
He's doing
sick.
well. I think he's about to go back out on tour, which is
Love that for
incredible. So folks should know
You
Sinbad
can get
had a
us some
stroke.
tickets.
I will
Okay.
try.
Yeah, please do.
Thank you.
And he was reluctant to do interviews for a very long time. And then the original cast of A Different World started doing an HBCU tour.
Yeah.
And he popped up remotely when the cast went to Morehouse. And so I said to myself, all right, well, if he's going to zoom into Morehouse College, he'd probably be to talk to me. And he did. But he talked about the thing that you mentioned. He said that, comedy has a way of lowering our defenses.
Yeah.
And on his show in particular, A Different World, they were intentional about trying to slip in kernels of truth, trying to slip in some like a social consciousness, but wrap it all in a joke. Because these shows had to be funny. They had to be engaging. They had to have people tuning in week after week. But on that show in particular, it was a show with heart.
Shout out to Debbie Allen.
Yeah,
Yeah,
100%. When I think about the 90s, I actually get pissed.
How old were you?
Because
What do you know about the 90s?
what are you? You younger than me. No, see, bully. I think about Living Single.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And because when people talk about the 90s, the show that everyone brings up, a lot of people bring up, is Friends.
Mhm.
Say it, Eugene.
Friends
Yes.
Say
literally
it, Eugene.
Yeah.
stole everything
Yeah.
from Living. For those of you that have not watched Living Single, first of all, pause this, go watch all the seasons.
Queen Latifah.
But Queen Latifah, Khadijah, she's a
Khadijah.
Erica
journalist.
Yes,
Alexander.
Erica.
Like they are friends and cousins, and
Yeah.
they live together. There are 2 men and 3 and 4 women.
Mhm.
Like they start dating each other.
Yeah.
Don't that sound damn familiar? Because
And look-
they watched Living
Yes.
Single,
And
and they were like, oh, let's do
that was
Friends.
Is
the
that true?
template.
Because
That-
people will
no.
be like, oh, that's alleged.
That is absolutely true. That's not just us saying that. That is people connected to both shows who told me that. That Living Single was the blueprint for Friends.
Wow.
Absolutely. And what's so
Not even
interesting
just a
about
blueprint,
that.
they stole it.
Oh, there are some plot lines that were
Yeah.
lifted entirely from Living Single. But the woman who created that show, Yvette Lee Bowser, got her start as a writer in the
Mhm.
writer's room of A Different World, working alongside Debbie Allen. And Queen Latifah and Kim Coles had development deals with Fox, and the network kept giving them writers who didn't really understand them and who didn't get it. And when they put Yvette with the 2 of them, that's how you got that show.
Yeah.
And Erica Alexander's role,
So
she told
good.
me, there was pushback from the network. They said, you don't necessarily need to have this Maxine Shaw character. Why don't you write her out?
Oh,
And it-
because she's a black woman who's powerful
A
and a
black
lawyer.
lawyer.
Well, let's talk
Maxine
about
Shaw
that.
was an iconic
Maxine
character.
Shaw, dark-skinned with braids,
Mhm.
on TV as a high-powered attorney. That had never existed on television before.
Yeah.
There is now an entire lane of academic research that looks at the Maxine Shaw effect.
That's amazing.
And it speaks to the number of women, black women in particular, who were inspired to go into high-powered professions because they were able to play out in their mind's eye what that would be like by watching her character. To include Ayanna Pressley, to include Stacey Abrams, to
Yeah.
include Kamala Harris, who told
Mhm.
Erica Alexander that, who told me.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's remarkable. It's remarkable, really.
We were talking about this concept of white famous earlier. Are you familiar?
So, wait, is it black famous or white? I've heard
Well,
black
Both.
famous.
both.
So-
Well, there's black famous and white famous.
So what's
black
the white
famous is
famous
like
is white
Neil-
folks who are only famous among white
well,
folks?
I guess white famous
Is
is black
mainstream.
people who are
Is
white famous
mainstream.
is
So
mainstream.
like
Okay.
Nia Long and Morris Chestnut, some people would probably say are black famous.
Yes,
Mhm.
but Morris Chestnut was just on Watson.
Yeah,
and
he
he
had that
had
whole-
that
And
good
that's
run. They got
canceled now.
canceled. Yes, but I would argue for some people he was a little white famous.
Maybe.
But
Yeah.
there a lot of the Living Single was black famous.
But I'll say this though, those shows were A Different World was number 2 for almost a decade behind The Cosby Show. So the Nielsen ratings were Cosby Show, A Different World, and Cheers. And it was like that for forever and ever, amen.
But when people talk about the best shows, they talk about Cheers. They do not talk about the other ones. But go ahead.
Well, but my point is, these
Well, they're
shows,
not talking about the Cosby
these
Show
shows were
because of
black
Bill
shows with
Cosby,
black
but
casts
still.
and black producers, but they also enjoyed broad appeal.
Mhm.
And one of the takeaways in the book is that because they were so specific, because they were so authentic in the stories that they were telling, there was a universality in that. And it's important because for us watching those shows, it was a mirror, right? You were
Yeah.
seeing yourself reflected. And for everybody else, it was a window into a life, into an experience, or a joke that they might not have otherwise encountered.
So A Different World was white famous.
A Different World was absolutely white famous.
Yeah.
A Different
Yeah.
World was white famous. And
In
I
my
mean, you
house,
think
it
about it,
was-
Lisa Bonet.
Yeah.
You think these are global. Think about all the people that would come on A Different World. Hell, Tupac.
Everybody
on
was
A
on that
Different
show.
World.
Everybody was on
Everybody
it.
came on that. They came on the Cosby
And you
Show.
mentioned Debbie Allen. Debbie Allen saved that show.
Yeah, well, she
when that,
did.
When that
She
show
did.
was launched, Bill Cosby, as it was told to me, wasn't sure it was going to be a hit. It was basically a spinoff. It was a star vehicle for Lisa Bonet.
Mhm.
Because at the time, Lisa Bonet had was dating Lenny Kravitz. She had done this movie called Angel Heart that was risque, and Bill Cosby had a lot of issues with it. And so she was sort of banished, but banished with this show. The
I
show.
mean, if you're gonna get banished,
A
please
whole
give me,
show, yeah,
give me a
thank you.
show.
Give
Give
me
me
a
a
damn
platform
network,
if you're gonna
correct.
banish
So,
me.
but the Cosby Show taped in New York, he had this show taped in LA so that if it wasn't a success, there was physical distance between his show and that show. And he
We
could
all know
basically
his
say,
decision-making process
well,
is not good.
yeah. After the first season, Felicia Rashad comes to him and says, I've been on that set. That show is not working. And the way you're going to fix it is to have my sister come in and overhaul it.
Isn't that
And that's
amazing?
exactly what happened.
That's what I'm talking
And
about.
she went in there and was so specific down to the point of looking at the pit. Remember, like the
Yeah.
gatherings? And she'd be like, this is an HBCU. Why is there no hot sauce on these tables?
Hello?
So,
Clock it.
Small but
Clock
big.
it, Debbie Allen.
yeah, clock the lack of hot sauce on the tables. But I mean, like details that small.
Yeah.
And that's how you got the revamped different world that is so culturally resonant.
You talk about Maxine Shaw effect, but also you write about how Different World literally changed HBCU enrollment numbers.
Oh, yeah.
Right? It just feels like there are no shows nowadays. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's people that watch Scandal and want to be a fixer in DC, but it
It's
doesn't
true.
feel like there are shows that do that actually like go way beyond the idea of clothing or like the way people talk. Talk a little bit about the importance of having a show on television that has people that look like us on it and changes the amount of people who believe they can go to college.
It's
like,
incredible.
That's actually insane.
My brother had gone to Morehouse. He's 5 years older.
Mhm.
And I knew I was going to end up going to Morehouse. I wouldn't say that out loud at the time, but I had a sense of it. But for me to be able to watch, Daryl Bell, who played Ron Johnson, I sort of saw kinship with that character. It was
Now
huge.
he low-key look like Daryl
He
Bell.
kinda
Now that
does.
he says it.
Now that I'm
Now that
looking,
he
I'm like,
says it.
I know
Now
I'm
you
just shut
light-skinned
up.
ball man.
Shout
Come
out.
on
Shout out
now.
to Daryl Bell. He was the first actor who talked to me because I literally, I
really?
was like DMing people being like, I have this idea for a book, but I can't do it unless you give me an interview.
Yeah.
And he was the first person to give me time.
We love that.
Absolutely. So, but yeah, no, there are no real shows like that do that anymore. I mean, maybe The Pit, I guess, for people who are interested
That's
in,
for white. That's not for black people.
Not
That's
for
not a
black
black
folks.
show.
Not specifically for black folks.
I can't even get the word out. It's not about black people,
no.
but black
Yeah.
people do watch.
But are black people in it? I watched The Pit, and I don't think there's
One or
there's
two
one black
characters.
doctor.
What about The Shy? The Shy is a show like that, right? Like Lena Waithe,
But
The
is The Shy? It's a great show, but is The Shy changing the way people see themselves?
No.
Maybe in Chicago.
But it's also because people these days, there's a markedly different experience if you're just watching something on your phone,
Yeah.
scrolling,
Yeah.
as opposed to back in the day, sitting down with your family
Yeah.
in front of the TV in the living room. And if you got up to change the channel, it was going to have to be a conversation.
Mhm.
And so you sit there and you watch a show and you might not have a conversation about it, but it sinks and it lands with you. And to have tens of millions of families doing that exact same thing at roughly the same time, that's where you get the cultural resonance. And that's where you get a show like A Different World being so important and actually driving up the numbers of people who are applying to HBCUs. We don't have those experiences today. There's no more monoculture. We don't have the same shared reference points. People are very much in their silos. And, that is one of the things I think that has led to this moment where there's like a lack of cultural cohesion.
Yeah.
It's the stuff that we're watching. It's how we consume entertainment, how we consume media. All of that has changed dramatically.
We don't have as many shared spaces anymore. You can literally, on social media, there's buttons where you can choose to hide all content like
Yeah,
this.
yeah.
So we are actively self-selecting and putting ourselves into various silos.
And projections of division. Because I don't think, and there's a disconnect between, and you all know this, there's a disconnect between the way our politics is lived
Yeah.
Come on.
and the way it's perceived and projected. I will never forget covering the first Trump impeachment, waiting in the basement of the Capitol for these lawmakers to come out from behind closed doors, and a Democrat and Republican coming out all buddy, joking, having a good time. One of
Right.
them walked to a camera position for Fox News and talked about Democrats in a way that you would, now we would
Yeah.
expect, right? Hit is over, goes back, buddy, walks back into the room. That happens all the time
Yeah.
in Capitol Hill, where Democrats and Republicans are friendly, but they project as if
They're not.
they're not, because there are vested interests in having us at each other's necks.
One of the I'm gay, so Will and Grace. I don't know if you guys know.
What in
Shout-
the world?
But
Not I'm gay.
I'm coming
The
out.
nail polish gave it away. Breaking
Exactly.
news.
But I think about like Will and Grace and Ellen as
Yeah.
like seminal moments where people watch those shows and start to be like, maybe these gays ain't that bad. And I feel like, and there's a line of study about
Uh-huh.
that. I feel like these shows did the same thing for black people.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like it was about showing us multifaceted
Mhm.
in different ways. Most of the people for many of the shows were striving for excellence, right? Like it wasn't Insecure where Issa can't get a job, right? Like it was like, right. Well, keep a man. It was like over and over. You have Uncle Phil, who's a judge. You have Bill Cosby, who's a doctor.
Successful doctor.
Right. Yes, his wife's a lawyer. Like all of
Who
these
speaks Spanish.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All of these black people
And
who
even
were high
Martin
powered.
was a successful DJ.
Correct.
And Gina was a marketing executive.
Correct.
People forget that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now the other one didn't have no
Now,
job.
Tommy
Brother
had
Man
no
didn't have no job,
job.
and Tommy ain't never had no job. But that's everybody else had jobs. But like it shows black people in a completely different light. How does that impact the way that the country saw black people?
Yeah, and it started with the Cosby Show, I think. And the point I make in this book is that because you had all of these shows on the air at the same time, no one show had to bear the burden of representing the entirety of the black experience, which is
Yeah.
not a thing that can be done.
Right.
Because the Cosby Show, let's not forget, caught a lot of flack from some people about, oh, this is too aspirational and this is not a real depiction of black life.
Vanessa sneaks off to Baltimore. We just gonna play it. We just gonna play it. Vanessa sneaks off to Baltimore to see the Wretched.
You have taken us from levels of frenzy, panic, distress, and now that we know you're okay,
She should have won an Emmy.
Yes, she should have won an Emmy. Look at Vanessa.
Look at Vanessa.
now,
All
Vanessa,
that
we
hair.
are
Look at that monster.
enraged because we know that you have been to Baltimore, Maryland, with the Wretched. To have
Big fun.
big fun. Isn't that what you had, Vanessa? Didn't you have big fun? Well, let's
Big
see now.
fun.
You had donuts. Had donuts in Wilmington, Delaware. Cliff, tell me, have you ever been to Wilmington for donuts?
Not on the weekend.
Not on the weekend.
Oh, that's incredible.
I play that because, to your point, people said, oh, it was too aspirational. I mean, and I've never been to Baltimore to see the Wretched, but
You've been told the hell off by your mama
I've been told the hell off by
before.
my mama. My daddy's sitting there, well, I got to take it because they done gathered me from doing something
Yeah.
like that. That
Yeah.
actually is real.
Yeah.
And you don't have to be black to see a moment like
Yeah.
that.
No,
and to
because
have
white
that
parents cuss their
register.
kids out too.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the other thing is that these shows, they soften the distance between people. And when you see stuff like that, and first of all, the fact that Felicia Rashad never won an Emmy
It's
for her
crazy.
role is criminal.
Yeah.
It's criminal and it needs to be rectified.
One could argue it's racist.
Well, that's true.
One, maybe three would argue.
Maybe three would argue.
You would not have a Secretary Colin Powell. You would not have
Yeah.
a President Barack Obama. Certainly not as quickly had it not been for those shows. In much the same way you would not have marriage equality as early as you did were it not for Ellen DeGeneres and Will and Grace and those kinds of shows.
I just want to play one other clip. Yes, we are all similar in various
Dealing with
different
similar
ways. We're dealing with
things.
similar
Yeah.
things. The scene that comes to mind for me is Dwayne at Whitley's wedding.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my God. It's Whitley's wedding day. She wakes up, confused. Dwayne like visit her late at night. And then her mother tells her to like put Dwayne behind her, like you about to marry Byron.
Uh-huh.
And you need to think about Byron. And I do's are about to be pronounced. And then this scene happens.
It's so
Play the
good.
clip.
Go on, Reverend. Go on.
Until she responds.
Well, she means yes.
Well, she's got to say yes.
Diane Carroll.
Iconic Diane Carroll.
Insane.
Will you? Blessed are those who ask the questions, brother.
Woo!
I love you, and if you'll have me, I want you to be my wife. What the hell are you doing? Hey, I'm sorry, Byron. I love her.
Die. Just die.
Not Olivia Pope.
Die.
Daddy.
Will you have me die as your lawfully wedded husband from this day forth to having a whole and richer for poorer? Baby, please. Please.
I do.
I do.
It was
So
crazy.
good.
Iconic.
So good.
Okay, the thing, this is so amazing.
Die. Just die.
You know, so Debbie, way back when I had a show at 4 p.m. on Saturdays and Sundays,
Great
Debbie
show.
Allen, shout out to you for watching. Debbie Allen, because people still are like, I wish you never had your own show. And I'm like, y'all the reason why it's not on there anymore. Y'all asking me these damn questions is why I don't.
Oh, my
Actually,
goodness.
yes, correct.
Oh, wow.
Debbie Allen came to do the show.
Uh-huh.
And she talked about this moment, and Kadeem Hardison has since talked about it as well, but like they did this in one take.
And it was improv.
And
The
it was
Baby Please was improv, yeah.
Yes, very much so. And when the scene was over and they yelled cut, everybody was kind of looking like, was that
we do
okay?
it?
And Debbie Allen's like, that's good, we can move on. But that's real TV. And it's, I mean, I just think about that every time somebody gets married.
Yeah.
I really do. I'm
You just
like,
waiting?
You looking for
I'm
Kadeem
like,
Hardison?
You know, I don't really go to a lot of weddings, but every time I'm at one, I'm like, well, but it's the culture.
You grew up in Oklahoma. Where'd you grow up?
The South. All
Omaha.
over the South.
I'm
yeah.
sorry.
The Midwest.
I had the
But you know
Omaha.
what?
You
Everybody
had the
thinks
O.
Omaha is Oklahoma, so no shade, Jeff.
My point is, we grew up in different parts of the
Correct,
country, but
correct.
we all have the shared experience of watching that and watching all of these shows and
Mhm.
having the sort of the same reference points.
Yeah.
And if we were going to go to a wedding and someone shouted, "Baby, baby, baby, please!"
Yeah, I'm
we
like,
would know
no,
exactly.
no,
we would know
no.
exactly what we're
Yeah,
talking about.
Yeah.
These days, will kids 20, 30 years from now be talking about like a Drewski clip? Probably not.
Hopefully
No,
not.
hopefully they're not.
I don't think they'll find common cause around some of the stuff that exists on
You
like
know-
social.
That's sad.
Yeah.
That is
That's sad.
devastating. I know we have to go, but I mean, I'm gonna just throw this on the table
Uh-huh.
for us. We talk about that there's like a lack of a shared culture, American culture, but I would just argue that I can meet a Black person from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I can meet a Black person from Miami, Florida. I can meet a Black person from the back alley woods of Georgia,
Not
rural
back
South
alley
Dakota.
woods.
And I feel like we have all had a similar
Yes.
experience. Like there's just some things that like your grandma told you, you either in or you out.
Uh-huh.
Why you letting the air
Uh-huh.
out?
Let's not let my
Why you
air out
letting
my
that? Why you
house.
letting that air out my house? Like that's
Ripping
that
and
is-
running.
You ripping and running.
Come on now, the
Yeah.
street lights. Come on, where you
Yeah.
going?
Home.
There is just something. There is still shared culture.
But this thing, everyone that you're talking about that would acknowledge that aspect of shared Black American life are people who are probably our age or older.
Yeah.
Because if you talk to someone who's 16,
Mm.
do they know that? Do they know that when the lights are on, your ass better be at home?
I'm gonna start telling my son. I'm gonna start telling my stepson, you better quit ripping and running.
Yeah,
around this."
correct. No, they
Right.
gentle parenting.
Right,
Ain't nobody
right,
out
right.
here
You
ripping
need
them
to
out.
start using ripping and running, Jeff,
Yeah,
with
no,
your
he
kids.
knows all about ripping and running.
Okay, all right.
And letting all my good air out the house.
Exactly.
Knows all about it.
Letting the pink ones out the refrigerator. That's what my mama used to say. So I guess you're right. Maybe are we failing these children?
Y'all are, I ain't got no kids.
They need to read the book.
Y'all are failing. They do. They do.
need to read the book.
Yeah.
Do you have
McDonald's
McDonald's money? I'm crying. Jeff, thank you.
Thank you both.
So
You know
good.
what?
you
We
both.
do
Y'all
have
are
to
the
laugh to
best.
keep from crying
We
in these
do.
moments. And this is just a really good reminder, as we were saying, that
Mhm.
even in, because the 90s was crazy for Black people.
Yeah.
Hello?
Yeah.
They was locking people up, talking the
Beating them
crime,
down.
getting beat down. Come on, Bill Clinton, the crime
Mhm,
bill. Joe Biden
mhm.
and the crime bill. But Joe Biden would say he didn't do that. Bill Clinton wrote it. That's another story. But the 90s was a crazy time, but so much creativity came out of the 90s
just
as
across
well.
the board. 90s R&B unmatched. Fashion, Carl
Do not
Kanai,
get me
Aniche,
started.
Cross Colors, the list goes on. TV, we talked about TV,
So
movies,
good.
literature.
So
I mean,
good.
just the Black cultural creation in the 1990s was off the charts.
Mm-hmm.
And my next book might be about, like, how do we get back to that point? I don't know.
Well,
But-
it is a reminder that even in the midst of chaos, terrible things happening, great, extraordinary, genius things can be made if people just put their mind to it. So
Yeah.
thank you for writing
We
this
love
book,
that.
Jeff.
Black Out
Thank
Thank you
for
for your support.
coming here. Black Out Loud, available now wherever you get your books. And if you are an audiobook person, as we are,
That's,
did you
we have an
narrate it
audiobook
yourself?
too, yeah.
You did?
Yes,
Yeah.
okay.
25 hours in a booth,
Oh.
cumulatively.
All right, all right.
So it's
You know, they pay you extra when you do it yourself. Shout out to Jeff Bennett. Jeff, we appreciate you. We're gonna take a little break, folks, and we're gonna meet you on the other side with the side chat.
this is great.
Hello and welcome to the side chat. What's just us chit chat talk about it?
Jeff was great.
Love
okay,
Jeff.
I love this
It's
book.
such a good
okay?
book.
And you know what? This is making me want to go. Not that I have time, but
At
I'm gonna
all.
go watch some. I'm gonna go watch some oldies but goodies.
Yeah, do it while you're prepping. That's what I do now. When I prep
Really?
for the
Then
show,
how
I
are
watch.
you?
I watch TV.
How are you? How are you watching something
I'm good at
and while you're
multitasking.
prepping for work?
I'm good at
That's
multitasking.
insane. What are you
Um,
watching right now?
I am watching. I think it's called The Dinosaurs. Dinosaurs. I'm not sure.
Oh,
It's
did
on
you like
Netflix.
it? This is Morgan Freeman
Yes.
narrates
Morgan
it.
Freeman is narrating like basically the dinosaur. There's 4 episodes. I'm on episode 2.
Mm-hmm.
Episode 1 tells you like everything that happened before the dinosaurs get here. Y'all, it rained for 1,000,000 years on Earth.
A million?
So Earth basically looked like Mars, essentially.
Oh.
And nothing could grow here.
Until
And then
God.
until And then somebody
course.
made it ready for a million years. And that is how we ended up with all the water. That's where the grass grew. After that, a lot of the, they were little lizards. They weren't exactly dinosaurs.
This is the
They
one Steven
became-
Spielberg directed, right?
It's so good.
Okay, I saw the
It's so
trailer for this
good.
before it came out,
It's
like
so good.
it's on Netflix.
Yeah, yeah.
Scrolling on that, and I was like, "Oh, I need to watch this." So I did bookmark it. I haven't watched it yet. Now, somebody, maybe it was Brittany. Shout out to Brittany Brown. Somebody told me they saw the dinosaurs and they were like, "I didn't love it. They didn't tell me nothing new."
I
But-
loved it.
okay,
Only
so-
a nerd would say it didn't tell you nothing new.
Oh.
I'm a nerd, but this is like, you have to be another level to be like, oh, I didn't learn anything. It also is a very good reminder in the chaos of our current world.
That
of
we could all
how-
be gone tomorrow.
Well, no, that too. That's not what I was going to say. That's terrifying. That we're like such a small speck in the history of this planet. The amount of time that we as human beings and the way the Homo sapiens that are walking around right now is such a small, like little check mark.
It's humbling.
And it is humbling.
I'm gonna watch this.
And it's very good.
It's in my saved. Okay, so
It's
shout out
very
to Morgan
good.
Freeman.
Yes, and the Morgan Freeman's voice is
I mean,
amazing.
honestly, it's great. You know, I'm wearing my little.
What are you wearing?
These are these little, you know, the little friendship
You're like a
bracelet
Taylor
thingy?
Swift kid.
Okay, yes. So
I also watched her documentary on Disney and I actually liked
you
it.
got a lot of. You know what? I forgot. You work on the weekends. You have a lot of time to watch.
I had
things
one day
during the
okay,
week.
Okay, one day. What is this?
Okay, so you know we had Easter dinner
Yes,
last
yes,
week, and
yes.
so my sister told me you got to find a little whimsy every day because the world is
Oh,
hard.
yeah.
And so my whimsy, I went a little crazy in Hobby Lobby.
Yeah.
So and I made Easter baskets
was
for
very
the
cute.
children. Thank you.
Everything you did was very cute.
Thank you. I made Easter baskets for the kids, but then I also got these. Like this is a Sagittarius. This one says KJ Sister Sim. My sister, one of my sisters-in-law, she
cute.
gave this to me. But I made everyone. I got these little bracelet things. Like 600 beads came in there, and I gave them to all the girls, like the children girls,
Yeah.
but also like the
The
adult women.
girls,
And then during Easter brunch, after while the men was playing cards, we was over there making bracelets, and so I made them like they had your sign
They're
on
very
them.
cute.
So what I will be doing this weekend is, well, I'm traveling, but when I'm done, I'll be making another bracelet, and I'm also now into phone cases. I'm making those as well.
You're making a phone. Make me a phone case.
I will make you a phone case. I bought some
Yes.
resin.
Maybe.
You gotta find, yes, baby. I got some UV resin. I'm about to make you a phone case.
Make me a phone
actually,
case.
I'm gonna
I
make
will
you a
use
phone case. I got
got
you.
a Pro Max.
You have
now,
a 17?
The big one, yes.
Perfect. I have
Same
a case
phone.
for you.
There we
Clock
go.
it. All
Come
right
on
now.
You got find some whimsy.
Find
this
some
week,
whimsy
y'all.
this week,
Find
folks.
some damn whimsy.
Find some whimsy. We're
We
gonna
love
leave it
that.
there. Shout out to the whimsical.
Yeah, the whimsical.
Thank you for listening.